This is the new Thypoch Simera 21mm f1.4 lens for the Leica M system. And for someone like myself that has always loved the 20 and 21mm focal length, but has nowhere near the amount of money for a 21mm Summilux, this is a bit of a dream lens for me. So let's check it out, see if it lives up to my expectations, and if it's worth purchasing for yourself. Right off the bat, obviously this lens is not small, but for what it is, I think it's pretty reasonable. If you take off the lens hood here, you can see that, I mean, it kind of just looks like what you would expect out of a lens like this. And to be honest, it is a little bit smaller than I anticipated. But just for a quick little comparison, if you have any of the other Thypoch lenses, this is the 21, that's the 50. Then we have the 28 here and the 75. So obviously the 75 is going to be a little bit more in line with the sizing here. And the 75 is a 58mm filter thread. The 21 is a 62 because you can obviously see it kind of extends out a little bit at the top, but they are pretty similar in size. And while obviously it's not like the best balancing lens on a camera, what you're getting out of here is pretty darn impressive. Now for me, 21 is one of those focal lengths that it has a very specific purpose. It is like it's a tool for me. I don't find a lot of necessarily creativity out of it. I'm mostly using it to do a lot of scene setting. It is a very like kind of cinematic lens where if you want to do like an X-pan crop or something, you get some really, really cool images out of it. And there are a ton of ways that a 21mm can be more creative. But for my style of photography, I'm trying to make things not be exaggerated. I don't use a lot of like crazy wide focal lengths for their dramatic effect. I mostly use them just for the idea of just needing to have a wider focal length. And I find that 21mm is really good at being wide, but not like too wide. I often find that something like 16mm can just be like a little bit too overly exaggerated. And what I do find is that I like the jump, specifically with like the Leica system and even with my other system being that I often shoot on my Sonys with a 28-70, having the jump from 28 down to 21, and I just kind of skip the 24mm focal length is a good little jump there. I find that when I want to do a little bit more scene setting, this is kind of the focal length that I end up reaching for. And then the other thing I do a lot with this, and something I found to be problematic with a lot of other lenses, is astrophotography. And obviously a lot of people will use like a 14 or something, but I do find that I really like the 21mm focal length for that, and specifically a f1.4 lens. Sometimes you're going to get an f1.4 lens that just does not perform well for astro. But for this, in the, just couple times I've actually been able to use it, it is really, really good. You are not getting a lot of like crazy smearing, and it's definitely sharp enough even at 1.4 to both let a lot of light in, but also give you, sharp enough points of light in the stars to make it worthwhile. Now, the other reason I often like to obviously have an f1.4 lens is because I use this a lot at receptions. So I use it for dance party and that kind of thing because I like to be able to just kind of zone focus. I just stick the lens at usually f8 at around 1 meter, and then I just toss a like manual flash on the top of this thing and just kind of go nuts for a couple hours. So at that point, I obviously don't need f1.4, but there are the times where I'm going to be shooting flash and then I'm going to see something and want to take like an exterior or something else that I actually just need the light in. And at that point, it's really, really useful to be able to stop up, I guess, to f1.4, move my aperture to f1.4, and have just that extra light gathering capability is super, super helpful. So again, it's not something that I would necessarily want to carry around all day, all the time for the Leica system. But it's one of those things where if you need to have a fast aperture lens, the trade-off is going to be there. And I don't think it's nearly as big as it could be for its performance, its focal length, and its aperture. Now, I will say that the the lens hood here does add a little bit more, but I do find it's really good, and I used it when I was out actually photographing stuff, mainly because the front element here is not like enormous or anything like that, but it is fairly large, and especially when I'm doing like party dancing stuff, I don't want to have that be much of an issue. So for an f1.4 lens at 21 millimeters, it's of course going to have some vignetting, but I didn't find it to be anything that wasn't very, very easily correctable. I would have no issue shooting this on film. I know that it's going to have vignetting, and it's something that it's not like you're going to be able to get away with as easily on film, but it is something that, yeah, I didn't really find to be that bad considering what this lens is. And then as you can see here, it does have a little bit of barrel distortion. It also focuses all the way down to 0.23 meters. So very, very close. And I found that it was also really, really useful when I was using it on my FX3 here, and kind of a fun little combo to be able to have this manual focus ring. This works really, really well. The only thing is that if you're going to buy this particular lens to use on like a cinema camera or anything, is you do have something that is very, very, very useful on a Leica, but it would not be on something else, is you have this detent here at 0.7 meters, which is as close as the rangefinder can focus. So as you're going over, you just kind of feel that little thing. And if you're not kind of pushing through your focus too confidently, you're going to have like a little kind of blip there. So it is something that, like, if I was definitely on a budget and also had Leica cameras but wanted to have this whole set, I might end up doing a video on the Simera Cs at one point because they are really cool, but optically they're all going to be the same as these, so I guess just know that going into there. Like many other wide angle lenses, it also doesn't have any sort of focus tabs, just kind of like a normal lens there, no focus tab or any extra kind of rangefinder assistance at all. So overall, I find this to be a really, really worthy lens, both to the Simera line here to kind of like round it all out, but also to the person out here that really has wanted like some of the Summilux lenses. And I have a few Summilux lenses, or I guess two. I have the 35 and the 50 Summilux, and I have a 28mm Summicron, but there's just no way that I would ever be able to justify spending the money on a 21mm Summilux. And this gives me, while I've never used that other lens, I can imagine a lot of that same performance, just considering how my other Summilux lenses perform in comparison to something like this for the money. So if you have always wanted to have a wide angle Summilux, this is probably going to be the thing you're going to look at, and maybe it'll hold you over, maybe it won't. But I do find that, for me at least, this thing performs just fine, lets in a ton of light, gives me a ton of flexibility, and even right now, it's not too heavy to carry around. Would I rather have a slightly smaller 21mm if I was going to be carrying around all day and doing street photography and mostly outdoors, things like that? Of course, sure. But for a tool lens, for me, is this a pretty amazing lens? Absolutely. So thanks so much for watching. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments down below. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please consider doing so. I'm trying to get to 100,000 at some point here, and obviously that is just super helpful in the YouTube world. If you want to check out some of my other videos on the Thypoch lenses, you can check that out here. Check out my video on the Eureka lens up here, and I will see you in one of those.